So, welcome everybody to our traditional book club discussion for the virtual book club for Eve Chung's The Daughters of Shandong. Sorry, Daughters of Shandong. No, the. It was inspired, I think you guys probably know already, but it was inspired a little bit by Eve's grandmother's experience during the Communist Revolution in China. And but a lot of it is fiction. Her grandmother had already passed away when she started writing this book, and a lot of it was her process of trying to understand what exactly, not even exactly, but even generally, people experienced during this period of change. Um, it's not that big of a book, but it covers a lot of time. So the whole of the story is 378 pages in the regular print. But wow, Eve Chung fits a lot in here. Uh, I I'm gonna stop talking because I know that I talk a lot, and I think I'm gonna open the floor already to Carol and Rozanne who've read it. Bracha, you feel free to add anything that you would like at any point. But Carol, what did you think?
Oh, me.
Mhm.
I have a lot to say about the
Okay,
book.
go ahead.
I read it. I worked hard about my review, whatever. Okay,
Okay.
first of all, I thought it's a historical fiction, but rings like a thriller.
Hmm.
Thriller. I thought. To me, it was a page turner. For me, there's a lot of suspense, and yes, there's a lot of history in this book,
Mhm.
which I was very interested in because I yes, I remember that time about Mao Zedong and Chiang Kai-shek and the communists. Chiang Kai-shek was a dictator, and he established his own establishment in Taiwan. And this is reminds me about some other books we did, like Finding Flora, about women who get
Mhm.
together and 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 they overcome all the trial and tribulations and what this mother went through with these two daughters and the baby who couldn't walk and of all this. And I wonder why. I guess in China, she had obeyed this horrible mother in law, 90 for some reason. And we see that the father listened to his mother in law, and the daughters thought their father was betrayed them to leave them without money, and their house was burnt, and whatever happened. So there are some passages about power, page 33. Once the communists rule all of China, they won't care about the peasants. Power changes everyone. They will rise, rule, and will want more power and money. Reminds me, Trump, our president. Yes, it's very something about today. So I'm wondering about these characters. I'm wondering about this father. This father, he he abandons his whole family and his children and leaves them to starve and maybe to die. And then I'm wondering, in the end, did he change? At the end, when he leaves his mother-in-law, buys a home, and with his whole family. And before that, I'm interested in the two daughters. I is beaten up, and she's the one who's kind of listened to her mother. But my favorite character is Dee. She's independent and she's willful and she's going to do what she wants. And I wonder, she was her safety first. The older one is book. She wants to get school and get a degree. Now, had they stayed in Hong Kong, maybe she would have owned a restaurant and I would have had a business. She was for money and for safety, practical. So here we go. They get finally Taiwan and they find the family, and the father finally leaves the house. And here we are. At that time, girls were useless, according to everybody in that society. Useless. They can't work, they can't do anything. So, what are they going to do if we come? Girls, all this time, they were told girls are useless. What really surprised me is at the end, the mother betrayed them. First of all, I was really sorry. Dee fell in love with someone and they thought it was incestuous. She knew.
Incestuous.
I thought, Nina, I think Nina did it. Nina told the boy that it was incestuous. How come he left Dee? She lived with this boy, and all of a sudden he dropped her. I wonder with Nine told the boy, you can't do it because incestuous. Maybe.
Mm.
I was sorry that Dee gets those style. I was so involved with this character. I couldn't believe in the end she gives up. Now the mother also betrayed the daughters. How? She gets another daughter. She gets a son. And all of a sudden, the daughter is ignored. It's all the son and the son and the son. That was shocking to me. After years and struggling and starvation and living in the streets, and in the end, she favors the son.
Mm.
And I'm telling other books, Finding Flora, how communities get together, find flora. They each had a piece of land and they get together to do something against this unscrupulous landlord. Here, they go to this mountain and they get a kind of community and they're going to build road. And how community is so important. And anyway, that's what it is. Okay, that's my take on this book. I think it's a page turner. I think everybody should read it. For me, I'm really interested in Shanghai because you know that the Jews were rescued by the only country who took in Jewish people. All the countries refused. My father also was in Shanghai for a while. So this whole about China, Shanghai is the whole thing is really interesting me. I'm reading a book called The Land Kings of Shanghai and tells you this whole story how none of the country, not Canada, but China, didn't have a visa, and there are two Jewish families, and the China emperor got them visa. They got 18,000 Jews
Mm.
from the Nazis. So this whole thing and about communists, well, what they did, I don't blame the young kids. It's us, we're good, like hit you, we're gonna change it, I don't blame like people who really get into this, they're gonna, these people who they brainwash people,
Mm.
as far as I know. Anyway, is all I wonder, anybody have ideas about the father? Did he have remorse?
Mm.
I'm thinking about this. How come did he actually have remorse? I don't know. I'm really
I
asking.
have a I have a feeling that Roseanne has an opinion on this, on the dad.
Okay, okay, okay,
Uh, I'm gonna turn the floor to Roseanne. Roseanne and I have
okay.
discussed this book a little bit in a previous book club. Uh, go ahead.
Well,
I
first of
would
all,
like to say one word in this wiki
Go ahead,
for this.
Bracha.
Uh, the Chinese accepted Jewish survivor from the Holocaust. They connected at that time Jewish with Karl Marx, that they became to be communists. So they thought that the Russian also were the first country to vote for Israel as a homeland for Jewish, because they thought that it will be a communist country. They thought that it will be, uh, um, yeah, they believe that the Russian refugee uh, going to live in Israel will be the leaders, and they became leaders, actually, the first leaders, and they thought that Israel will be communist, and also the Chinese accepted Jewish as connected to communism.
Okay.
What I think also, for good or for bad, communism, um, the good side and bad side. But that's another question. What I have to mention without reading this book, I will read it. Now I see that it's really interesting me to read this book.
Mm,
That I've read one of the books that emotionally influenced me, that Pearl Buck, The Good Earth.
Pearl
The,
Buck's The Good Earth. Yes.
yeah, and she lived for a while in China with her father, who was a mission ambassador to China or something like this. So it's a fiction, but based on certain facts.
Hmm.
Well, I remember when I have read the China before the communism, it came to the degree that was they ate their babies, according to Perbach.
Mm.
So, yeah, that was China of they ate the seed, the rice, everything that was uh, condition not conditioned for to live their life. So the communism not only was a solution for them, but look at China today,
Hmm.
comparing in China of Perbach.
Yeah. Well, that's like history, of course, so the huge revolutions, the intricacies of politics. Again, like everyone, I feel like everyone thinks that what they're doing is the best thing to do. Like we see this in this book as well, Daughters of Shandong, where perspectives from the communist revolutionaries, like that the Communist Party is, like the parents of the people and
I'm
trying to
not
teach them how to behave, and like how punishment is meted out of love. These like, and similarly, and on the opposite side, right, that the perspective from the nationalists is that this is the way to behave, because then the educated are the ones who are, you know ruling the country, and they know best, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, everyone thinks that they're the ones who are doing the right things. It's a hard thing, and it's an interesting exploration in these books of historical fiction, trying to explore the different personalities and the different justifications of one side or another, and the reimaginings also of the whys things are going on. It's to sort of hopefully add some perspective and some an element of truth, even if it isn't like a an objective truth, although I don't really believe in objective truth. But yeah, it's an interesting to see the
Well,
different perspectives.
I am not arguing that communism is the ideal form of society, or and less the corrupted form, which is beginning to be. It's not the original concept of communism.
Mm.
It's not what Karl Marx
No, but none of it
created.
ever is, right? It's like we always have the
Whatever
ideals and then what
it works,
actually ends up happening. And that's
it
true with
works for them.
capitalism. That's true with capitalism. It's true with communism. It's true with socialism.
Mm,
It's true with all of the isms so far that I've seen. There's no perfect solution. But I'm just going to back away a little bit from politics right now. And I'm going to go back to Carol's question, which was what we think about the father in the story and if he showed any remorse or if he saw errors of his ways or anything. And turn that to Rozanne.
Okay. Well, first of all, I've read books uh, about the Jews coming into Shanghai. But remember, this was the 50s. It was after the war. This was these were wealthy Jews, most of them, and they lived in compounds. And when you read the autobiographies of some of these, they said that they would go out of their compounds and they would see dead people all over the street. It was horrible. This is before Mao Zedong took over. This was awful. The people were in very, very bad shape in China after the war and during the war, I'm sure. But in the books that I've read about survivors who went to Shanghai, it was not good. They lived well. They had schools. They did everything they had, but they were wealthy. I surmise they were wealthy from what I read, from what I could figure out. But the point is that it was awful on the outside. Girls, it's their culture. You're not going to change a 2000. Our culture is new. Democracy, capitalism is more or less new compared to what the Chinese have had a culture that is thousands of years old. You're not going to change it because some girl is trying to be free like Di, which is wonderful, but you can't change the mother. You can't change a woman who like the binding of the feet. Wonderful. The government finally realized that the women couldn't work with their feet bound. They couldn't even hold. You could if the woman was bound feet, how could she do the all that work that the mother did? Because the grandmother certainly couldn't do it. She was hobbling, and even when they unbound the mother, she still had terrible arches and all that stuff because she had been bound for so long. But the government finally realized, but it was a nationalist government in the 1950s, and then Mao Zedong, of course, started taking over. But I see the father. It is they said it twice through in the book. A man cannot abandon his wife. Well, he did, but I don't think he ever thought that they were going to die or something like that. They really thought it was going to blow over. That's what they kept saying. It's going to blow over. I don't think he put he didn't know he was going to do it in harm. They put him in harm's way. Nine Lila, whatever. She couldn't care less. But the husband, I don't think so. I mean, I think what he did was awful. But and then when he realized what they went through, because I don't think that they ever shared until the kids went ballistic and finally shared how horrible it was for them. He just he more modern, he took a step, and I'm sure in China, well, we all know there are lots of girl babies that came from China in the 50s, the 60s, the 60s for sure, 60s and 70s and 80s, girls. I once saw a Chinese boy, a child with French parents, and I'm like, oh my god, he must have something wrong with him. That's modern times, but we all know that the girls were the ones that they were killing off, and they were to avoid that. They went into the people were adopting them. So thank God that they accepted that. And in Romania, they didn't. They let the kids sit in orphanages that were horrible,
Mm.
and they didn't let their kids to be until later on. I don't know how long that took, but it was awful. But at least China, okay, let's ship them off, and then they came with the one. I don't know when that policy came out. One child policy.
Mm.
That must have been not at that time, because I obviously not, because she had 4 or 5 kids. Maybe the maybe yeah, I don't know how that works. I mean, you could pay off people to have more. I don't think so. I think it was very strict. They were very strict on their one child policy.
The one child policy was from 1979 to 2015.
Yeah, but okay, but that's what I'm saying. But that's why it wasn't then. But they when they realized that maybe they adopted kids before the 1970s. I think
Hmm.
they were still adopting Chinese babies, girls. But I really feel that I the mother did the fact that when the boy was born, she changed her whole way. You can't change thousands of years of a culture and the way she was raised. She didn't know better. She knew better, but she didn't know.
She had internalized all of that, even with
Exactly.
all of her like lived experience. It's a hard thing to reprogram. And in the
Exactly.
same way that, even after um Kai is giving her all of her wages and everything, and she's living with Nai, like she's still kneeling every time Nai says she doesn't accept her own freedom, the mother, until her son is of age,
But the father
right?
fought.
Like this is like so much like this is inculcated, right, Roseanne?
Yeah, and she was providing the formula. The daughter was providing. She realized she's not going to change her mother, so she's good.
No,
He
but
went
it
ahead.
still kind of broke her heart, right?
Yes, it did, because she was the next generation who was already waking up to the world.
Yeah.
She was waking up to the world because she didn't want to get married. She didn't want to just because so
Well,
that
she
she
wanted to study. That was her main
right.
thing, right? And she knew that she wasn't being given the same opportunities as her cousin, who was a boy. And then, and then even as, like, obviously she saw all of the ways that her mother was slighted. And I think that, Carol, you mentioned the way that the mother betrayed them. I think that, I don't think that the mother thought of it that way at all. I, she was thinking just like, oh, finally, I've done what I was supposed to do, which was to bear a son and heir. Um, but I do think that Hai for sure perceived it as a betrayal because it just seemed like, but we were a unit. And then as soon as her brother comes along, then it's like almost all of that experience that was lived is not useless, but back to the useless, the idea of like these useless girls, right? These useless girls, another mouth to feed. This, like in the author's note, she says, there's a saying, value men, belittle women. Um, but this idea of like the uselessness of women, but we see throughout this entire story, which it is very female centered for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. But we see how much all of the women are working and how hard all of the women are working, with Nai, of course, being the exception. The idea of them being useless, it's like, but everything would stop if you didn't have women around you doing, like, forget about the actual child labor, right? The labor of childbirth, but also all of the cooking and the cleaning and the, like, all of the, like, so many of the restaurant owners or the stall owners that we meet as well are women. We have women working in the missions. We have in the refugee camp. We have like such strong female characters. And Nine Eye is also a very strong female character. She's the worst, but she's strong. Um, but my take too, Carol, on your question of whether the father felt remorse, I doubt it. I doubt it. I don't think too that when like I kind of disagree with you about how he didn't think that anything would happen to his wife and his daughters necessarily by leaving. He just was weak and spineless, and he didn't care enough. He cared more about his position and his family's perception, like his parents' perception, than he did about his wife and daughters. So I don't think that he cared whether they lived or died. He was hoping like it was a gamble, right? That uh, that they would be able to save their property by them staying there, but also then they weren't there. So if it worked out and they lived and kept the property, great. And if it didn't, oh well, it was just girls and women. That was my perspective on
I
it.
don't think he, but I don't think they realized that there was just like the Jews didn't think they were all going to be gassed. They're denial. They thought that I mean, why did 6 million die? Because they sat there and waited and said,
Except
"Oh, German, I'm wonderful. I'm good. I've done so much for the world for Germany." Well, they
Except
sat.
the difference there is that they, like the family, the Ang family, chose to move the important people out, right? Because they'd been not only warned by Hai's mom, uh, who was warned by the workers about the revolution coming to their house, basically, but they were also warned through the military by Uncle John.
But in Germany, they did the same thing. They
I
before
know, I know, I know, I know.
doesn't matter. I mean, I understand what you're
No,
saying.
I think that you're right that a lot of people didn't realize what the severity was going to be. What I'm saying is that the Ong family, I feel like at least Yeye and the dad did because they made the choice to take the important people out who they
Well,
valued as important.
Well, the Germans did. The Jews in Germany did the same thing. A lot of them sent their sons out. They did. They stayed. They sent scientists out. I mean, why did the Americans run after the people who started the atomic bomb? Why? Because they had to get the scientists out. The
Mm.
scientists didn't leave before. You
I'll
know.
tell you. Okay. Okay. I'll tell you something. Yes. I want to tell. Had the father had sons, he wouldn't have thought about it. You don't
He would
leave
have
a
taken his
country
sons.
if his father had sons instead of daughters,
Mm.
he would have taken them with him, I'm sure.
Hmm.
Next, he took all the money. He
Yeah,
didn't leave her with no money, no
that's true.
nothing. That's one thing. He took away from her, and really,
And the
True.
food.
the father did not take all the money, leave the mother no money,
True.
no money. Next, a father doesn't leave a wife and daughters when you're leaving the country. Anyway, that's my take on the father. The mother, and she finally had a son, and she knows having a son, he's going to be successful. But she abused the daughter. She didn't. She gave the daughter a bottle of, I don't know, some water instead of milk, and totally let her play. Totally ignored her. That was a bother with me. But I'll tell you, in all these books, we measure the earth about abused women. I found out, I'll tell you on these books, but the resourceful determination and willing to fight to justice, each in their own way, makes this book a must to me.
Mm.
And all these women that we read some books, the same Tibet and all, where they have to leave their homeland. People who leave their homeland, of course, they point to their home. always, but these women, even the daughters, were so determined and how resourceful, how they decided to find food even in garbage bins. Where do
Hmm.
they sleep? On the street. And they're schlepping this wagon, and the baby has tuberculosis and can't walk. Each of them decides they're going to carry her or push it. And this dog, oh my God, the dog,
Lucky.
Lucky. Oh my God, I was crying when he ran. Oh my God, I have
Yeah.
a cat and I love that. Oh, that I'm crying. He would not leave this family. That's incredible.
Rozanne is so happy right now that you brought up Lucky.
Lucky, of course, lucky.
But you know
Oh,
what you're not
because
bringing up, Carol? Carol, if you remember, it's Gen culture. The reason she was treating that boy so well is because she kept saying, and they mentioned it twice. The man takes care of her. The
Mhm.
man will take care of her when she gets older. And that's because again, it's the cultural thing. The man having, what I shocked me, to be honest with you, I never knew this one, is they talked about when the woman gets married, they go with their mother-in-law. They're not even allowed to pray, to say your uh
Like to
what
light incense for
yeah,
her own parents who
stop saying
died.
your side.
Yeah.
No, they're not even allowed to do that. It's like water in a stream. They're out of the door, and they never, from what I gather, they never see them again.
Well, and another thing too, right? So we're talking a lot about the parents, and we can talk a little bit more about that. And then I would like to kind of shift us a little bit to high and D. But with the parents, and we're talking about the culture, like so many, like again, like the ways that we internalize the things that we've been taught, right? And one of the things that comes up, like even with like this perspective of the mother and the son, right? Like that, oh, the man, the boy, like this is the heir. This is who is going to carry on the family line. This is who is going to take care of us. This is who is going to, because they're the ones that matter, right? But similarly, like we have woven throughout the story, then the way that Hai and her mother perceive the world, where even though they're making these tiny little steps out of like, okay, so they're being industrious and they're being adaptive to a degree, but only within certain confines. So even like towards the end, when like when Hai goes on that well, date when Hai is chaperone, it's supposed to be chaperoning the date between or sorry, D and Jia Shan, then she's like, oh, so I say this is what I have to say is like you order whatever you want. I'll be happy with anything because it would be rude otherwise. And like in the same way that like my sister can't talk about any of her accomplishments. That's why I'm here, so that I can talk about her accomplishments. So he knows while she says no, 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 she's following these same kind of traditions that are laid out. The only one who really defies all of these traditions is D, right? And it does bite her in the butt a little bit. Like it's I find like the characters of D and High really, really interesting. They seem like they're polar opposites, but they also seem like they complete each other. And with D, we have the representation of independence, but also loneliness, right? And with high, we have the sort of more the community, this idea of like, oh, like, if you steal food for the family. Like it's looking for the family to continue on. Whereas D is really like this individual survivor. And that makes her sometimes an unlikable character, but it also, like, especially towards the end after she gets her heart broken, like it's the only time that we see her really with what seems like a personal connection. While she makes connections, like she's very adaptable every time they move, and she makes these links between business owners, between the communist cadres, with the missionaries, with anyone who can kind of help further her survival, it's only the only one that really touches her seems to be um the broken kind of engagement that happens later. And I have to say, like, I feel like she was traumatized the most from the family's abandonment and also like she saw part of that abandonment as, or part of the people who are responsible for that abandonment as well as her mother and of High, who wouldn't speak up, who wouldn't fight against it. Like they were tacit abettors, I feel like, in Dee's eyes.
I don't Di got what she deserved, to be honest with you,
Mm,
because I don't have a problem with her being a survivor, and she was. But I'm sorry, she had a baby who was suffering from terrible malnutrition. She didn't share one bit,
mm.
and I guarantee you, she stole more than one egg from that.
Yeah,
No,
for
so she got.
sure.
For
For
me, she
sure.
got
But
what she deserved.
I felt like my first reading of the book, I had less compassion for Dee than I did in my second reading of the book.
That's up to the mother. The mother.
Mm,
No, his two daughters, Pi and D, looked after her all these through. They wanted to work. Their mother shouldn't work. The mother had a breakdown. These daughters looked after this mother all through this what they had to do. That's why I'm saying. Then she gets a son, and then she forgets that her own daughters, if not the own daughters, she had looked after her, she wouldn't have made it. So now I understand the son is the heir and everything, but she abused the daughter. She didn't hear a bottle. She ignored this daughter at all. That's what bothers me. Yes, it was the culture.
mm,
Fine, she gets a son. The father's going to be very happy. I understand. But all this through, these daughters were loyal to mother. And now, in the end, she gets a daughter and decides she's
a son.
useless. That's what
Yeah.
really bothers me about the mother.
Oh,
That's why
when Hai
I
has her first
feel
child, who's a daughter. Mm,
that's right. That's why I feel I didn't feel that way. She betrayed the two daughters who what went through with we know what they went through. No money, sleeping in the streets. All this time they were worried about the mother. Dee was wanted to stay in Hong Kong.
mm.
Maybe they should have. She would already own a restaurant,
She was
and I
13
would have a
years
business.
old. She was 13 years old, 14 years old. She was younger than High.
No, but this
She
is
was
what comes up at the end of the book, right? Where, as well, where when they decide to go to Taiwan, and Hai is also torn about this idea of whether, like, so anyway, that thought comes up several times after they go to Taiwan. Is like, would it have been better to have stayed in Hong Kong? What if we had stayed in Hong Kong? We could have, this is the possibility. It's all of the what ifs, right, that come up. And she does have
okay.
those what ifs. Yeah, she brings those up too.
You know why? Because she was striving to own a restaurant. High could have striving to her own calligraphy. Calligraphy. Why? So the mother shouldn't work.
Mm.
I'm telling you, they looked after it and looked after it. In the book. As far as I'm concerned, they said
She looked
they
after.
want to make money. So
Yeah.
how
The
did
mother
the
was also
mother?
looking after
Oh my
them,
God, she
for
looked after
sure.
unbelievably.
The mother
Uh,
was looking after them too. I read these stories with the mother characters, and because my kids are, teenagers, and this is one of the things that I think of often is I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing? The whole point is that, I mean, like, I read these stories, and the mothers are just like these incredibly altruistic, just give, give, give. And I know that I am not like that. But then I wonder, and then I wonder, I'm like, but will the kids remember that I was like that? Because the ways our memories color things, the way we color our memories anyway, can be not necessarily true to the experience. But yeah, I think the mother is everything she does up until her son is born, everything she does, she thinks she's doing it for the betterment of her daughters, for their survival and for their best, out of their best interests.
And she doesn't do it with the other
Rozanne
daughter.
agrees.
I
No,
agree because
because the son comes along.
well, okay, that, but again, she knew that what the life they were living
Yeah,
could not continue,
yeah.
and and especially with the Chinese coming closer, the Mao Zedong group coming closer, Taiwan was a safer bet. Yes, she was going back to her husband, but again, the husband is not allowed to abandon his wife. That's the culture. So
Hmm.
she knew she was going, even though he was supposed to get married. Well, during the war, unfortunately, a lot of like Jewish men got married and they left their wives back in Europe.
Well, and the
And
other thing too is that the communication was spotty too, right?
that,
So like even like sending mail, so many letters didn't arrive, or
right.
they would get someone would have to leave
So,
before a letter
yeah,
arrived and
mother
to
knew
not know what was going on.
as a mother, she knew that they were at least going to have, she kept saying, at least we're going to have food and we're
And
going to
family.
family because no matter what, even the brother-in-law, the younger brother, she knew the younger brother was not going to throw him out of the house.
Yeah.
I get all mixed
Sen.
up. Yeah, the younger brother, the one who ended up
Well, he was lovely. Her side of the family seemed great. I
not
mean,
her side, not her side. The his brother,
oh,
the one
John,
young, the one who wrote his brother,
the
his young.
black sheep, though, he's also described as the black sheep of the
But it doesn't
family.
matter. He knew that
No, I know. I think that he was good because he was a black sheep.
whatever. But that doesn't matter. She didn't have communication with him. But the mother knew that even if if whatever reason they were still going to have a better. And if the kids later on, if they want whatever they wanted to do, they would have done in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to tell you, just 1966, in 1976, I went to Taiwan, and we had on our we are the only we are when I went on a tour, the first time I've ever been on, the only time I've been on a tour with a friend. And we get to Taiwan and we're on a tour with about 25 other people. And we came from Tokyo, I guess. And guess what? They put us separate, the two of us. They put us in a separate room and they had us sit there. And of course, the tour bus and everybody had to wait for us. We couldn't figure out why. Are you ready? Why? Because we had the Canadian flag on our on our luggage, and it seems Canada did not, was considered Taiwan a country, or something like, or Taiwan, Canada didn't consider the Taiwan country rather than China. Whatever it was definitely they did it on purpose because we had our Canadian flag, so we ripped that off. But it's interesting because it seemed that because we were Canadian, and that's what the tour guide told us. I should have told you to take off your Canadian flag from your suitcases because
It
we
literally got you flagged.
yep. That, no, it's interesting. I mean, I Taiwan is interesting place. It was like I cannot figure Hong Kong under Chinese rule. Hong Kong, I mean, it was so American and so British when I was there that I
Yeah.
can't imagine what it's today. I can't even imagine what it's like. I can't. I have no idea how.
No.
So many tourists, so many. It was just, and yet it's they took over in what 1990 or something, whatever.
Well, the ways everywhere really has like a lot of places anyway. I don't think many places have escaped a lot of change in the last like
Yeah.
60 years, right? It's been well 50 anyway. Okay, we just have a few minutes left, so I do want to just send one little thing out to for our food for thought or to help kind of wrap us up a little bit. Is right at the end of the book. So after highs, this is like we kind of like really speed up at the end of the book too. Hey, like it goes from High being like 23 years old to then like she's had her three kids and they're grad and the eldest is graduating from high school and university, and then she's heading across to the United States to do a master's. And uh, just right at the end of the book, she's at the graduation ceremony, and she says, um, I came to the epiphany that a story does not need to end with a single person. Sometimes success is something that happens over the course of generations, something that is built upon life after life, each one opening a path so that those coming after can walk easier, farther, like the refugees who made the road to Rennie's Mill. My mother had limited education and sold eggs in the market. I had a specialty degree, but university was out of my reach. My daughter was going to have a master's degree, and she was going to be a scientist. This is like, I think this is the hope of all parents everywhere, but especially of immigrants, all immigrants, right? Like, so like we move places to hopefully have a better life and to provide a better life for the next generation. And we hope that things kind of get better and better and better and better as time goes on. I liked that paragraph a lot. It really kind of encapsulated this optimism that I feel like High's mother showed in like even in the face of just like difficulty after difficulty after difficulty after difficulty after difficulty after difficulty, like thing after thing.
I'm
And
just curious when they allowed women to go into the university. If women were so useless, when did they allow women to go to university?
mm,
I'm just curious.
well, different times in different places, clearly, right? Like, because I mean, the thing is that like these discussions as well with like the gender issues, like again, women were considered property in Canada for a really long time as well, right? We weren't people. So in the same way that at one point when High is being taken by one of the cadres, where did you get that? One of the other cadres asks, not where did you get her? It's the thing, this idea of like this thingness, this you're not a person because you're a girl. Well, and because she was also a nationalist by virtue of blood. But anyway, do we have any final thoughts since we our time is up? Anyone else would you like to
How
say
come they?
something?
When did they start the re-education? When was the re-education where they took all these? They didn't kill them. They took them out of the universities, the professors, and they put them on the farms. When did they do that?
I I mean, I don't know.
I'm just curious because they did do that. It was horrible. It was a horrible thing. That's why they took all these. Because I read a couple of books on that one, and I don't know how long ago, but it was where they took literally they took the students
Hmm.
and that were that or educated, and they put them on the farms to show them become let them become peasants kind of thing,
Hmm.
and it was horrible. They, but I don't know when that was. That had to be that time around that time, but I
Yeah,
don't
so it
know.
was happening during the Cultural Revolution.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's
don't
right.
have a particular date this quick like right now, the but it so for historical context, like the Cultural Revolution was 1966 to 1976. And
So it's interesting because they never mention it in the book. So therefore, it
they
was
do
obviously
mention it
not.
in the book.
They do.
Yeah, in the early like I want to say like maybe in the just towards the end of the first third, like even when she gets like, "Oh, you're young, you can be re-educated."
Well, no, that's the rich. The rich were the ones they were after. But I'm not so. I didn't say they were about the educated, and they were after the owners.
But
That's what they wanted.
they were after all of the or well after it was like all of the elites, and this is one of the reasons too why I forget his name, their friend with one leg in the camp in Hong Kong, why he ended up leaving, like his teacher from the university, they moved all of their stuff over to Taiwan in because they were worried, right? So that's why he lost touch with his family and he ended up having the close-knit, or was this, no, this was Jiashen. Jiashen, this is who becomes Hai's husband. That he, when he was at school, they moved the whole school over to Taiwan.
Right,
But
right.
there's talk about the re-education camps generally,
Hmm.
because it wasn't just people at universities. It was young people for sure, but it wasn't just people at universities. But there's mention of the re-education in like the first half of the book.
Oh, I didn't remember.
But it isn't like deeply delved into for sure. For sure. Carol, final thoughts?
Because they did say the businessman. They said the businessman was
Yeah.
not a, because he was a businessman. He wasn't going to get in so much. You know,
Yeah,
he wasn't
because he
being.
wasn't a landowner.
That's right. So that's
Okay.
interesting. Okay.
Carol?
Maybe one more thing, and then I have to leave.
Yep.
Also, I worked at Holocaust Memorial Center for 5 years, and we mounted an exhibition of artifacts. One artifact in a glass. There's a comb with teeth are broken. This was belonged the woman. She brushed her uniform and she combed her hair and she said to herself, they can do what they want with my body. You can't take away my dignity. I thought that was fantastic. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. And Bracha,
Okay.
do you have any last thoughts from our discussion?
Well, I understand that the mother had 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. How it can be if the policy of one child?
Oh, that the one child policy came out after the happenings of this book. And in
Oh,
this novel, actually in this story, I think there are 5 children total that the mother has. We mostly, for most of the book, we only know 3 of them. A fourth one dies in infancy, and then, or well, she's in infancy, we'll say, and then the 2 others come along at the very end of the book. So
uh-huh.
for the most the bulk of the story, we have 3 of the kids who are the 2 eldest sisters, Hai and Dee, and then their youngest sister, Lan, who is crippled when she contracts tuberculosis as a baby.
They were lucky, actually, the girls, because at that time they were killing the girls in most of the villages. They were burying them. They were not going to support them if they were not wealthy. These were wealthy. It's a wealthy group, so they were able to support the girls. But I'm sure the ones, the farmers or whoever, they
Well, these
and I would.
perceptions too, right, of what is lucky is all relative, and also we're looking at this through a historical Western lens.
Of course, of
But
course.
we're going to leave it there for now as food for thought because we do have to go. But it has been a lovely
What's our
discussion.
next book?
Aha. Our next book is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. And our discussion will take place on August 11th. So if Carol, would you like me to send you a copy of the book?
Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Okay. And Rozanne, would you like it again?
Well, I would read it again because I read this one again.
Okay.
Um, no, the thing is that do I still have one out or did I give it back?
I'll double check. But
Oh, I gave it to
until,
you. No, I
but
gave
for
it to
right
you.
now, what I will do is I will end our recording. I will say thank you everyone for the discussion, and we'll see you next month. And I'm going to
Large
stop
print.
the recording.